Hi, everybody. I'm about to show you all kinds of cool photographs and videos of bats, starting right now. Let's go back to the beginning, though.
Oh, give them a preview.
Yeah, I'll give you a little preview of what's coming up. Sorry about that. So, I'm Dianne with Austin Bat Refuge. This is my co-founder and husband, Lee Mackenzie.
Hello.
And what we do is rehabilitate bats. We also give a lot of education programs, kind of like this one. And we try to mitigate bat-human conflict, which comes up with some frequency when bats decide that our houses are great houses for them as well. And it does happen. First of all, I'm going to talk about my very favorite bat, and I'm going to say they're all my favorites as we go along, but this is truly my favorite. This is the Mexican or Brazilian free-tailed bat, and this is a beautiful, beautiful little bat that roosts with millions of his friends down under Congress Avenue Bridge and in Bracken Cave and lots of other bridges and caves throughout central Texas and throughout the southern part of the United States. This bat also is the fastest flying animal on the planet. And this bat flies very, very close to 100 miles per hour in level flight. And I'm going to show you a bat right now, free-tailed bat. And I'm going to tell you why I'm putting my mask on. Our state agency, Texas Parks and Wildlife, has asked us to be very, very careful when we're handling bats and when we are showing bats and dealing with them close up, for the reason that it's a slim possibility, not being proved out by research so far, that humans could actually give COVID-19 to bats. So we are protecting our North American bats from COVID-19 by wearing our mask, and we always wear gloves. Here is a Mexican free-tailed bat like the one in the picture. Let's see if we can get a close-up of that. Hi there. This is an adult Mexican free-tailed bat, not very happy right now. Let me feed this bat a mealworm. Here you go. There we go. We feed our bats mealworms in captivity. That makes this bat a little happier. It's an amazing face, sort of like a little gnome with an overbite, as Dr. Merlin Tuttle said one time in an article, little gnomes with an overbite. All right. That's our first live bat. Next, we're going to still talk a little bit about, let's see, there we go. So people always ask, why are they called free-tailed bats? Behold, this is a free-tailed bat. Now, all bats have tails, but the Mexican free-tailed bat has a very short wing membrane that sticks out about, tail membrane that sticks out about 1.5 inches. It looks a little bit like a little mouse tail, although we hate to compare bats to mice. This is a little video of about a 1-day-old Mexican free-tailed bat that came into us back in 2017. It's kind of hard to get these little infants to make it, but we had a lot of luck with this baby. From 1 day old, this bat thrived and survived and thrived, and we ended up releasing this bat back to Congress Avenue Bridge. So that was a very happy success story. So another bat that we love and is sometimes our favorite is the eastern red bat. It's a beautiful, beautiful, abundant species that roost in the foliage of trees. People don't know about this bat, but they're in most of our backyards, I guarantee it. Now they're solitary, and that's why people often don't see these bats. They don't roost with millions of their buddies like the free-tails do, but they roost alone except when they have their pup. And this is an unusual bat among the bats in the world. Most bats have only one pup once a year. This bat can have as many as 4 once a year. And what you see in this picture is a mom nursing 4 pups that are quite large. We're going to show you a live eastern red bat right now.
This is a female eastern red bat, a juvenile of the year. She was born back in June, and she was just kind of a little midget. Some of them, they don't all develop at the same time, and she was one slower to develop than the others. Her name's Smokey. She's become our favorite. She's just got a will to live and a will to fly, and tonight she actually flew a complete lap around the flight cage for the first time. So we're real proud of her. She's proud of herself, and she's a happy little bat right now. So one more little drink. Oh, can't even see it.
All right.
I got booted off the stage.
Sorry. So they are amazing, and they're beautiful, and they're not only beautiful, but these bats eat an enormous number of insects. All insect-eating bats do. They eat many, many species. This is actually a gaggle of eastern red bats out in our flight cage. And the interesting thing about eastern red bats, one interesting thing is that a study was done of the guano of the species, and 127 different insect species were found in the guano of eastern red bats, many of them pest insects. So we have to make sure that a bat knows how to drink on the wing before we can release them back to the wild. Let's look at that once again. That's an eastern red swooping down, sticking out that little tongue and drinking water. They don't stop and sit down by a stream and drink out of it like other animals do. So, speaking of water, turns out that bats and a lot of other animals, especially in a state like Texas, where there's a lot of heat and a lot of drought and not a lot of open waterways, they'll drink out of your swimming pool. So we discovered this little thing called a frog log, because the side of the swimming pool is totally slick, and a bat that can actually swim quite well really can't climb out. So the bat can't swim forever. But if you have one of these, the bat or the frog or one of many other animals that sometimes get trapped in pools can climb right out. This is on Amazon, of course, for about $13. So we recommend this or something like this. Sometimes even just hanging a towel over the side would do the same thing. So this is a Seminole bat, another really beautiful bat. Similar in size and appearance to the eastern red bat, but the colors, this gorgeous mahogany brown. In the inset there, you can see a group of Seminole bats, and then the 2 bats up on top are eastern reds, and you get a good look at the differences there, and how they're very much the same and quite different looking at the same time. We've discovered that there's actually some inbreeding in the Seminole and the Easter, interbreeding rather, not inbreeding, among these 2 species. So sometimes the bats that we get in are a little bit hard to tell if they're one species or another, and they look like they're just right in between. So this is a Seminole doing a perfect camouflage as a pine cone. These bats actually roost in pine trees, and here in Texas we get most of them in from the east part of the state, a lot of them from the Bastrop area and those longleaf pine trees. These Seminoles are kind of hiding in plain sight, and we don't know how to find the bats in this picture until we start the video and you get a little action there. They look an awful lot like those brown leaves on the outside and some of them on the inside of the flight cage. We have to find them every morning in the summer when the pups are out there learning how to be successful adult bats. And it can be a challenge sometimes. Now the northern yellow bat, and we're going to show you one of these live too. This is a gorgeous bat. that is the same color. Yeah, you do it. You do it. This is a bat that roosts in the skirts, those brown skirts of palm trees. And hold on, and I'm going to show you what one looks like up close. There we go. This is Grammy. Grammy is a northern yellow bat that came in a couple of years ago. And he is actually a little smaller than he should be for his species. He's really a beautiful bat. We didn't think he was going to survive. He came in as a little hairless infant, and it took him weeks to grow fur. We think he was born with some form of dwarfism. His forearms are shorter than they should be, so he can't fly very well. I named him Grammy because he had a naked skull with gigantic ears that stuck out the sides, and he looked exactly like the gremlins from the movie. All right. Okay. All right. We also are aware that people like to trim these trees. They like to trim those dead fronds, and we ask them not to do that in the summer. This is just another shot of a beautiful northern yellow bat.
Cut out of the tree.
Because when they trim those in the summertime, a lot of these bats get trimmed out and end up falling on the ground. Some bats are orphaned, some are injured, and there's some mortality that's associated with this. So we ask people to please not do that in the summer. We don't really want people to do it at all, but if they have to do it, late fall or early spring is the time to do this. This is another yellow bat. It's a southern yellow bat. It's a little bit different. They still roost in palm trees, but they're smaller than the northern yellows. And they have sometimes a little darker fur like this one. But they have some of the same habits, and they do roost in palm trees. So same thing, don't trim the palm trees. Turns out that these bats, though they have a much more southern range than the northerns, are actually roosting in palm trees right here in Austin now. So whether it be climate change that's causing them to have a northward range, or that combined with people planting ornamental palm trees possibly. But they're right here in Austin. All right, and the cave myotis is another favorite of ours that people just don't know about. It's actually the second most numerous bat in Texas, right after the Mexican free-tailed bats. These bats roost in some of the same caves and bridges that the free-tails roost in. And also, this is a bat house bat. This bat will roost in a bat house along with free-tails and evening bat sometimes. They do here in our flight cage. And this bat really is kind of a unknown bat to a lot of people, but it's a beautiful bat. Unfortunately, it's one of the species that is subject to white nose syndrome disease. And so we get a few of those in now, since white nose syndrome is here in Texas. This is a one-day-old cave myotis that came in as an eyes closed, naked infant free-tailed cave myotis bat that we also had good luck with. This bat was able to survive and thrive and eventually be released. We named her Mothra. Next is an evening bat. Now this is the bat that the bat pups of this species are the bats that the illustrator of the How to Train Your Dragon movies used for a model for Toothless the Dragon. It's a very small bat and kind of a pretty chocolate brown color. They like to roost in cavities in hollow trees and branches, just like that. And this bat has 1 or 2 pups a year. And over there is a mom and her 1 pup that was born here at the refuge. Both of them eventually released. This is what the baby evening bats look like. They're born completely black, and for the size, you can see next to the dime and the Q-tip how tiny they are. But this is the tiny toothless the dragon. Tricolor bat, we've got one of these to show you too. This is one of the smallest bats in the United States. They're called tricolor bats because every single hair on this bat's body has 3 distinct colors. In the bottom right, you can actually see that where the hair is parted on the back. It's black at the base, or very dark, very light in the middle, and kind of a little darker brown color at the tip. So let's look at a live tricolored bat.
You can see how tiny she is in my hand here. Just a little tiny thing. But they're pretty wonderful bat. They look a lot like little wind-up toys. They spin around in circles and make little clicking sounds, and they're pretty awesome little critters. It's most people's favorite little bat. If you see a lot of bats, these will win your heart real quick.
All right, so these bats are tiny. This is actually a mother and a little pup on her on the bottom, the lower left. Now, all insectivorous bat pups are tiny when they're born, tiny to us, but actually they're quite large to the mother. All bat pups of insectivorous bats are about 1/4 to 1/3 the size of the mother. So if you just want to imagine that for a human mother, that would be a very large baby. We would probably not have much of a population if that were the case. Okay, all right. This is a little hard to understand, so Lee put some captions on here so you could see. This is a tricolored bat hunting in our flight cage. And that there's a moth captured inside the tail membrane. The bat is kind of flipping her tail membrane up over her face because she's going to eat that moth out of her tail membrane while she's flying. So they're quite acrobatic. It's kind of a Cirque du Soleil out in the flight cage every night when these bats are hunting for moths. Another favorite, all of them are our favorites. This is a hoary bat. And let me just from the start tell you how that word is spelled so you can understand why they're called hoary bats. That's H-O-A-R-Y. Beautiful bat, a very large bat, one of the larger North American species. You see that sort of frosted color on the tips of this bat's fur. And that's because they're named after hoarfrost. And that's what this is. Anybody who's lived or been up north and seen every leaf of every tree, every pine needle covered with frost, that's called hoarfrost, and that's what these bats are named after. This is one that came into us during migration one fall, was exhausted, needed some hydration and some mealworms, and we were able to send her on her way. Beautiful face, gorgeous coloring. One of the most beautiful bats in the world.
And big.
And big. Well, this is, let's say this is our current favorite bat. These are 2 pallid bats. And they are just a treasure to us. We have never gotten pallid bats in Austin before. They're not an Austin bat, they're a West Texas bat. And somebody out in one of the oil fields in West Texas found these bats as juveniles and were able to get a transporter to bring them to us for flight training in our flight cage. So they've been living with us for about a month and a half now. They are really ready to be released pretty much any time. So we may find a way to get them back out to West Texas so that they can be released and go on their way eating all of their favorite foods. some of which, at least in part of their range, are scorpions and centipedes. And these bats are thought to be immune to the venom in those insects. They're beautiful and amazing. And we're just, we're still just sort of gobsmacked that we're able to have these in our flight cage. We enjoy them so much. This is the part that I get to in all of my programs, no matter who I'm talking to. I have to say this. It's so very important, and I hope everybody takes this to heart. If you remember nothing else, please remember that the vast majority of bats do not have or contract rabies. And bats are not carriers of rabies. They do not have a carrier status. Sometimes when a bat is found to be rabid, bat found in a neighborhood, sent in for testing, it's found rabid. That does happen, it's not unusual. It does not mean that the rest of the bats in that neighborhood are also rabid. It's very important to understand that. However, please don't attempt to handle bats, certainly not with a bare hand. They're wild animals like any wild animal, and we don't want you to handle any wild animal that lets you. That's the wrong one to handle. They might get frightened, they might bite in self-defense. And they might think that your hand reaching for them is the owl or the hawk that wants to eat them. So please don't do it. This is one of my favorite quotes from Dr. Tuttle. Like most animals, bats are threatened by habitat loss and degradation. However, they are also uniquely threatened, almost universally, by humans. Now to COVID-19. I'm not going to talk much about this, but I will tell you that bats did not give us COVID-19. And you will not get COVID-19 from any bat. You will get COVID-19 if you are unfortunate enough to get it from humans. We do have information on our website under our blog, several papers, papers and opinions and articles about COVID-19 and bats, and I would really encourage you to go and read some of those if you have questions. This is the shameless commerce part, where we talk about not having any funding from city, state, or federal agencies, and that we rely on donations and sales from T-shirts and fees from educational talks to take care of the bats. It is not inexpensive, and we would love it if you could help us help the bats on our website at austinbatrefuge.org.
And also, please check out our social media. We have a pretty vibrant Instagram and on all the platforms. So if you want to see cute little bat videos, it's the place to go. So check it out. It's Austin Bat Refuge on IG or Austin Bats on Facebook.
All right. Thank you guys very much. Really appreciate it.
Fantastic. Oh my gosh, Dianne and Lee, that was a great talk. And the bats are so cute. Wow, they're just adorable. The chat is all full of cute bat comments. And also questions. By the way, I did post all of your links, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and their donation page, all on the
Oh, great. Thank you very much.
chat. So hopefully people can find that and click on those.
Thanks.
We have some really good questions. First question was, can people visit the Bat Refuge?
Right. Well, normally what we would say is if you become a member of Austin Bat Refuge, and we explain that on our website, one of the benefits of that is a visit and a tour of our facility and some up close, excuse me, up close visits with some of the bats in our care. Unfortunately, COVID-19 has put an end to that temporarily. So we are hoping that in the future, next year sometime that we'll be able to start that up again. In the meantime, we have an awful lot of videos of our current bat patients on Instagram. So please keep watching our Instagram feed, and you'll see a lot of the bats that we're working with right now.
Great, great. What can our viewers do to help Austin's bats?
That's a great question. There are a lot of things that people can do that don't really take any, any props or any money. The most important thing, and I really mean this, that you can do is to talk to friends and neighbors and family about the fact that bats are not dangerous, that bats are not all rabid, that bats are not going to give them COVID, and that many, many, many of the stories that they've heard about bats over the years are simply not true. I think that's the most important thing people can do. Also, people can build or buy a bat house and put up a bat house, give some extra habitat to bats. You don't necessarily get bats to move in immediately. It turns out bats don't really know that a bat house is a bat house. However, if bats in your neighborhood have been excluded from somebody's attic or other habitat has been lost nearby, they may very well be aware of your bat house and move into it. And it's really, really fun when they do. There are at least 3 Austin species that will live very happily in a bat house.
That's great, great. That actually answers one of our other questions. Follow up to that, someone asked if I have a bat house up, should I use a bat attractant spray?
Yeah, that's a very common question. The research that's been done on bat houses, and there's been actually quite a lot of research all around the United States and in Canada, research projects where people put up bat houses certain ways and they reported on what worked and what didn't. Most people said that bat attractants or rubbing bat guano inside their bat house did not attract bats. I think it's probably not necessary to try that. I think the best thing you can do to attract bats is to use best practices when you buy or build a bat house. You want to site it high enough. You want it to be the correct size. And we have that information on our website as well, sort of the best practices for bat houses.
Great, great. One of our viewers asked about dead trees. Do bats like to nest in dead trees, and should we leave them up?
Yeah, absolutely. Lee, you want to answer that?
Yeah, that's standing dead trees are really important habitat for bats, and if you can leave one, if it's not a danger to your house or your family, just leave it standing on your property, and it's really great habitat for a number of different bat species around here. In fact, it's like you don't have to buy a bat house.
That's right. That's your bat house.
Bat houses really just mimic the loose bark on dead trees.
That's exactly right.
So bats could land on the tree trunk. They've been doing it for millions of years. So if your bat house has a thing that looks like a tree trunk and has loose bark they can scurry behind, then your bat house will be successful. But you can beat them. You can just cut to the chase and leave your standing dead trees, and then invite the neighbors over and get lawn chairs and margaritas and watch your bats fly out every night.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. All right. Well, we've got one more question. How do you determine where to release the bats when they're ready to be returned to the wild?
Lee, you want to take that too?
Yeah. Well, it depends on the species. So the Mexican free-tailed bats that we that constitute the majority of the bats that we rehab every year are very wide-ranging bats. They commonly fly 30, 40 miles out to feed on a night and come back to the roost after flying all night. So they know all the different roosts around. So if we get a bat that's from, say, Round Rock, or if he's from one of the other roosts that are in the close by in the hill country, we can release them at Congress Avenue Bridge, and they'll find their way back there. So unless they're from a far-flung place, then we would bring them back to exactly where they came from. So other species, we have to be a lot more cognizant of where they're most commonly found. Seminole bats, we only release out in the Bastrop area because they're associated with the piney woods, and the lost pines are the closest that we can get to that. We never receive them from West Austin, so we release them over that way. But the red bats are very common residents of the Austin area, so we are happy just to release them in our neighborhood. And it's pretty awesome to stand up on the roof of your facility and see your kids go flying off and know that they're out in the trees doing their job every night, controlling the insect pests.
That's great. Well, Dianne and Lee, thank you so much. This has been a really informative and wonderful talk. I'm so glad we got to see live bats. That was great.
Thank you. This was really fun. We love doing this.
Well, thanks again, and hopefully maybe a year from now we'll have you on again in real life.
Yeah,
With an audience and
we'd
everything.
love to.
Look forward to it.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thanks, y'all.